Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, our weekly look at the world of business and finance. This week, from Switzerland to the Middle East, it's all about the car. The buzz at the Geneva Motor Show is on the next generation electric cars, as manufacturers try to arrest the dive in global sales. And some good news for Toyota. We'll find out why the troubled Japanese brand is still the #1 choice in the Middle East. And another business news, Zimbabwe, where white-owned companies are the latest target of President Robert Mugabe. So a bumpy old ride it's been for the auto industry in the last 12 to 18 months. Of course, Toyota's multi-million car recall, General Motors bankruptcy, brands just disappearing forever. So understandably, automakers are trying to put the worst of the headlines behind them and look to the prospects of a greener future, and I mean that figuratively and literally. Even so, it was a bit of a surprise to the petrol heads at the Geneva Motor Show when Ferrari turned up with the 599HY Kurz, or a hybrid to you and I. The great motor car racer showing it too can get on board an environmental issue. And then there were the others, the Porsches, the Lotuses, the Mercedes, the BMWs. Also, this car, the Opel Ampera, crucial to General Motors' European operations, which needs billions of dollars to keep it going, and is being forced into thousands of redundancies. In a moment, an interview with Opel's chief executive. But first, this report from Jonah Hull on the still uncertain times in the industry. With incentives coming to an end, are car sales about to go into neutral?
Still under pressure for a grim streak of safety flaws, the world's biggest car maker, Toyota, paraded its newest wares at the prestigious Geneva Motor Show. Toyota hopes high-tech hybrids like the Auris will help lift the gloom, becoming models of clean engine technology and success. But all the talk is still of the company's failings. 8.5 million vehicles recalled since October, mostly in the US, with problems ranging from sticky accelerator pedals to faulty brakes.
I'm very sorry.
Toyota continues to wage a global campaign in damage control. Humbled public apologies have been made in Japan, China, the United States and Europe. Adding to company woes, Toyota executives are facing a third round of grilling by the United States Congress. And the number of deaths reported in the US since 2000, allegedly linked to Toyota's safety failings, has jumped to 52. The bad news, like Toyota's malfunctioning models, refuses to stop.
I think it's going to be a while before Toyota can really reestablish their brand image. The state of the industry coming into the Geneva Motor Show is recovery. You know, we're coming out of a terrible 2009 in most parts of the world. Some of the largest markets like Western Europe and the US really struggled throughout 2009. So 2010 is about getting back on track.
Global car giants are all struggling to emerge from painful recession cuts in car sales. In Geneva, Ford said it hoped to return to profit in 2010 for the first time in 5 years. Toyota has bigger problems. So too now does General Motors. 1.3 million GM models are being recalled in North America because of a power steering fault. GM blames the fault on a Toyota-owned parts supplier. Toyota may simply be content to share in the glare of bad publicity.
Now, you saw an auto analyst in that report. She actually went on to say how Toyota may not be the gold standard anymore. Probably a fair comment, given all the dramas there. But then there's also been a Gallup poll in the US recently which said 61% of Americans and 74% of current Toyota owners still think Toyotas are actually safe vehicles. So perception, as ever, is key in this story. But back in Geneva, we had the chance to catch up with one of the major players at the motor show, Opel, the European subsidiary of General Motors, which was almost sold off amid GM's darkest days, but pulled back at the last second. I spoke to Opel's CEO, Nick Riley, started by asking him whether he was satisfied that the right thing had happened, keeping Opel in the GM cradle.
Personally, I'm very happy that that decision was made. You know, GM never actually wanted to sell Opel. It's always been a very important part of GM. We think we need a strong presence in Europe. But the US company was going through bankruptcy. It didn't have any money to support Opel last year. And the only way we could keep Opel going was to get some support from governments and other investors. So we went into that process and nearly concluded a deal with Magna. But by that time, things in GM had improved, had come out of bankruptcy, we had a new board. and they took a look at it and said, we think the best thing to do is to keep the company. Personally, I'm very happy with that decision.
Okay, I'm kind of asking you to hypothesize here, but any thoughts on how Opel might have ended up looking had it gone through the sale process?
Yeah, that is a hypothetical question. My own belief is that there was quite a lot of risk in that deal because of the experience of the investor. There were plans, but the plans were just those plans. Whereas in our case, we've got real hard product, and I think there's a lot less risk in our plan.
And what sort of support are you getting now, Nick, from General Motors, given the trouble it's been through, and the fact that it has got a lot of taxpayer money backing it up in the US at the moment?
Yeah, actually we're just announcing today that GM has agreed to support Opel to a significantly higher degree than we'd committed to before. In total, we thought that the needs were about 3.3 billion euros to get us through the restructuring we're doing and get us through another pretty weak year in terms of from a market point of view. And GM had previously said they would put in 600 million of that 3.3 billion. We've just announced today that GM has said they will support Opel to the tune of 1.9 billion, so more than 3 times as much. And we hope that that will accelerate our discussions with European governments. We've already had some very favorable responses, and we're working with several European governments to make up the difference in what we need.
And you've got, as I understand it, a $15 billion quote plan for the future, with quite a lot of restructuring. Spending's going to happen. Over how long would you be looking at that? Because A, it's a lot of money, and B, given the trouble the industry's been in, I wonder if Opel's even got that sort of capital at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we have obviously taken a long time to put our plan together, but the priority in the plan is new products and new technology. We know we've got to stay ahead of the game there, not only with refreshing the existing products, but potentially adding some in segments we're not in, and then a very heavy investment in alternative propulsion, whether it be electricity in one form or another, or alternative fuels like LPG or CNG. And so that's our priority, and we've got 11 billion investment over the next 4 years that will come basically from internal funds, but in order to keep it going in a difficult year this year, we need some extra support.
Okay, got to look at the flip side though too, Nick. 8,000 odd jobs are being cut.
Yes, in these days there are tough decisions that have to be made. We don't expect the Western European market to recover to the volumes it was before. In some cases it was fed, it was artificially high, and we think it'll recover, but not to those levels. And so we have to take our break-even point down to a point where we can make money at a lower volume. And so we've estimated we need to take about 20% of our capacity out, and the way we're doing it will mean about 8,000 jobs reduced across Europe.
Just a final thought from you. I want to ask about Toyota, of course, in light of all the problems it's had in the last few weeks. Has that made you sit back at all and perhaps reevaluate your own business, your own safety mechanisms, the way you're looking after your own customers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's made us reevaluate. We've always had that pretty high up the list, very high up the list, and we have actually anticipated the problems that I think Toyota's going through now with technical solutions for that some years ago. However, it does definitely have a sobering effect, and it really makes you triple the efforts to make sure that this would never happen to us. I think the other impact is going to be that regulators are going to get even stricter and have enhanced regulations, which is going to make it tougher for us, but they don't want to be criticized for not having the right kind of regulation. So I would anticipate the regulatory environment will probably get tougher, not just in the US, but in other places too.
Now, speaking of Toyota, we wanted to take a different look at the company this week because for all of us who live here in Doha and across the Middle East, you just can't avoid the things. They are everywhere. It is the vehicle of choice, especially the big Land Cruiser SUVs, which really do feel like every second vehicle on the road, and according to some, actually are. We sent Rosa Ibrahimova out to find just what's behind the Middle East's love affair with Toyota.
Hamad Al-Badra is 27, and here in Qatar, they simply call him the racer. He believes if there is one thing a young person in the Gulf should do well, it's dune bashing in Toyota's best-selling car here, the Land Cruiser. This is one of the reasons why Toyota is so popular in the Gulf, the desert. Dune bashing is one of the favorite local pastimes here and a booming tourist attraction, and nearly everyone here still believes Toyota is the only way to travel. The only way, despite the recall of millions of Toyota models worldwide. Here they call the Land Cruiser the king of the desert. 8 out of 10 SUV drivers in Qatar own one.
Toyota has higher horsepower and more safety factors. It's the best for using on sand.
Qatari young men love to show their driving skills on a Toyota. It's stronger than any other car.
I still keep a Nissan, but I don't use it here. I use Toyota instead.
But it's not just the Land Cruiser. Toyota is the best-selling brand in the Gulf, with a 33% market share, far ahead of GM and Nissan. It's the car of choice for nearly everything here, from braving the often tricky roads to getting the greens for the family sheep. And the reasons given by its fans: reliability, comfort, and the capacity to withstand the summer heat. But perhaps one of the most attractive features is the ability to resell quickly and with little loss. Second-hand dealers here in Doha say a Land Cruiser only loses 5 to 10% in price a year and is snapped up within a couple of days of going on sale.
Once I get a Toyota, I immediately have a buyer for it. It sells very fast.
I would never hesitate to buy a Toyota. I know I will resell it without any hassle.
It seems it's all good news here too at a Toyota dealership. Trade is brisk and the recall is hardly a cause for concern.
Yeah, I heard about it, but I think that's not going to change my mind. I still like Toyota. It's a very good car.
No, why we should worry about that?
They mention also my car because it's 2009, but I feel there is no problem with it.
Music to the ears of this general manager, who says he himself is still trying to solve the mystery of this love affair with Toyota.
I think people have lived with the car, driven the car, driving the car also, so they can feel that quality of the car. You know, whatever news happens somewhere else, it is too bad, you know, that happened in America. But as far as Qatar, the people here are very much a loyal customer, and they feel the car is strong enough to stay with it.
And even analysts say, though the numbers may fall in the short term, Toyota's position here is as solid as ever.
It would be very difficult for a brand this solid and this established in the region to have its image tarnished or shaken.
And indeed, Toyota's roaring strength seems to be intact. While its fortunes may have swerved elsewhere, the shifting economic sands are yet to challenge it here in the Gulf.
And if you head to the Counting the Cost webpage at aljazeera.net/English, you can have a look at a little experiment I tried here in Doha. I took my camcorder out on the streets to film a piece loosely entitled "How many Toyotas can I spot in 60 seconds?" Just kind of backs out what you've seen there in Rosa's report, that Toyota truly is king of the road here in the Middle East. Counting the Cost returns in a moment with a look at insurance in Asia, the new growth market for the sector. And first, the white-owned farm takeovers. Now the companies will see just how black and white the business world is in Zimbabwe in just a moment.